was a 15-year-old from Webukwe First Nation. He had to leave his home and community to come to Thunder Bay for school. On February 7, 2011, he disappeared and was found 3 months later on May 12, 2011 in the Kaministiquia River. There are many Aboriginal teens who have to move out of their community in order to access high school education. Out of these teens, 9 have gone missing since 2000 in Thunder Bay alone. Because of this, there is a discussion between Aboriginal people and the law force in Thunder Bay whether there is enough being done about these missing cases. This is a huge issue because it is obvious that there is no special attention brought to searching for them or finding their cause of death. If this were missing teens that were white, things would be done differently. In May 2011, a woman named Dora Morris spoke out about the death of her nephew, Jethro Anderson, who was 15 when he went missing in 2000. She said, "It was just a really quick answer. We got that he died from drowning. I never believed he died from drowning because of the suspicious marks he had on him. He had a mark from the top of his head down to the middle of his forehead. It looked like a blow to his head. They'd be telling me no, or he's just out there partying like any other Native kid." Those are the kind of comments I was getting. There are many incidents all over Canada where police would take Aboriginal people on a night ride and drop them off in the middle of nowhere in the bush. Because of their race, and they were singled out and left to fend for themselves in a mysterious place. In 2004, the RCMP in Saskatchewan had to investigate the death of 2 Native men found frozen and an allegation of another man that was taken by police to the same spot and had to find his own way home. In Finland, the indigenous people who live there go by the name of the Sami. They are reindeer herders who follow the path that the reindeers go, and this is where they temporarily live. Because they were oppressed people, they were subjugated to different rules and their traditional land rights were never recognized. Because there are no written records of their history today, they are still fighting for these rights in the legal courts. As a high school student, I have clearly seen the formation of cliques throughout my 4 years here. The thing that particularly stood out to me the most is that the groups of people aren't separated by interests and clubs. I have noticed that a lot of Aboriginals don't hang out with those who are not Aboriginal. I feel this is because of racism and stereotypes that white people have on Aboriginal people, so they don't really care to get to know the person for who they really are. There's also a language barrier on top of that, if they were forced to leave their community for school. Nationally, the issue of Indigenous graduation rates is growing. Canadian classrooms were never designed for Indigenous kids to succeed. Statistics show that most Native youth never make it to their graduation, although changes in the classrooms continue to be made. There is a lot of social pressure on Indigenous kids to fit in and become mainstream. Also, the fact that most of these kids move to big cities with little or no knowledge of the English language because they usually learn broken English due to poor English role models. A lot of racism and stereotypes prevent this social integration from happening. Because of the residential schools closing so recently in history, the pain is still fresh in their memory and the distrust in the education system is still huge. So why would the parents want to send their children there? In Australia, the Aborigines were also outcasted and were never really properly integrated into society. The white people definitely did not care for those Aborigines who were dark-skinned. They wanted those who were more fair-skinned, which they called half-caste. They took those half-caste children and removed them from the residential schools because they had the legal right to. They would remove the children from there only to use them as servants. These half-castes remained vulnerable in strange communities because the world of the white people was so different from their traditional ways. Many of the half-caste girls were used as prostitutes and such, and these horrible things that happened to all the half-castes gave them a reputation that still exists as they are not properly integrated yet. Violence is always going to be a huge issue in any community. The bigger problem in Thunder Bay is the actual number of how many violent crimes that are committed here against Aboriginals. In Thunder Bay, the police do report that there has been an increase in crimes against Aboriginals. Racism is what drives these violent acts to happen, which means that they can be called hate crimes. Hate crimes are crimes that are motivated by racial, sexual, or other prejudice, typically one involving violence. They are usually committed to intimidate, harm, or terrify a person or a group. Throughout Canada, there is a huge issue with the amount of Aboriginal women who go missing or are murdered. Of course, this happens to white women, but when that happens, a lot more attention is brought to it, especially in the media. The media has many excuses for why women are not talked about in the media, like they are unwilling to talk to the media or they have a small travel budget. These women deserve the respect that any other women should have because they should be searched for just as hard as white women. Racist and sexist stereotypes is what influences these kidnaps and murders that focuses these crimes on mainly Aboriginal women. In Rwanda, there were two groups of people called the Hutu and the Tutsi. The Hutu looked more European-like, so they were favored by the Germans and put in charge. Once the Germans left Rwanda, the Hutu took over and started to kill the Tutsi. In 1994, this started a genocide in which 100 days, 800,000 Tutsi people were inhumanely killed. This issue of Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal relations is important to me because all of this horrible stuff goes on in the world that surrounds me, and I believe that people should be more aware of the extreme issues that go on, not only in Canada, but all around the world. I am hoping that my video will be seen by others and it will educate others about the hardships that Indigenous people experience locally, nationally, and globally. People don't realize how much damage something just as simple as name-calling does and the things that it can lead to. I experience racism on a daily basis living in Thunder Bay, and even if I can influence just a few people to change their attitudes, I will be satisfied. I think Aboriginal people need to know about this topic because there needs to be a compromise between them and non-Aboriginals. And they should know that not all non-Aboriginals are bad people, and a lot of us are also ready to change to improve this relationship with them. To improve this issue, we all need to accept different people, have an open mind, and start education about all of these issues.